They told me I'd find someone who really loved me right before they left me with strangers and moved 5 states away. I was 10. Now I'm getting married. And guess who just showed up like they raised me? This is the part where I didn't stay quiet. I used to think abandonment would come with warning signs, fights, goodbyes, maybe a packed suitcase. But when my parents left, there were no tears, no hugs, just a sentence I'll never forget: "You'll find someone who truly loves you." Then they drove off, and that was it. I was 10. They moved 5 states away without telling me. No letters. No birthdays. No second thoughts. Just gone. 20 years later, I built the life they never stayed to see. And the day I said I do, they showed up uninvited, unannounced, and completely unprepared for the woman I'd become. Before I tell you what they did, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to know they're not alone in this kind of pain. This is for every girl who was left behind and still made it. They told me we were visiting friends. I was 10, in my favorite corduroy overalls, clutching a stuffed bear I'd named Glory. My mom did my hair extra neat that morning, 2 tight braids, red ribbons I'd only worn for birthdays. I asked why she packed my things. She said, "Just in case." I didn't know just in case was code for forever. We drove in silence for hours. When we arrived, the house was unfamiliar, beige, too clean. My father barely spoke. My mother knelt to hug me. Her perfume still reminds me of betrayal. "Someone will love you better," she whispered. I waited by the window for days. Every car that passed made my stomach flip. I imagined them getting lost, changing their minds, knocking on the door, apologizing. I didn't know they'd already moved 5 states away. They left no contact number, no explanation. The woman who took me in said, "You're lucky. Most kids don't get a family this fast." I didn't feel lucky. I felt dropped off, like a return someone was too polite to question. That night, I unpacked only my bear. I didn't touch the suitcase. I thought maybe if I didn't settle in, they'd come back. They didn't. My new room smelled like lemon cleaner and strange dust. I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying that goodbye, trying to find the part where I misheard, misunderstood, misbehaved. Maybe I was too loud, too messy. Maybe I wasn't lovable enough. I remember asking the new woman, Angela, if I could call my parents. She blinked like I'd said something offensive. "That's not how this works, sweetie." That's when I knew this wasn't temporary. This wasn't a detour. This was the rest of my life. I stopped asking questions. The answers hurt more than the silence ever did. The hardest part wasn't being left. It was realizing I'd been given away. Like a problem, not a person. There was no funeral for that kind of loss. Just a slow erosion of belief. I stopped saying my parents and started saying the people I used to live with. It made it easier, like they were landlords, not blood. Angela made me follow a strict routine: no TV on weekdays, dinner at 6, chores before anything fun. I became good at being quiet, helpful, small. I thought if I behaved enough, someone would finally want to keep me. Angela had a biological daughter named Kayla. She got hugs and sleepovers and handmade Halloween costumes. I got leftover clothes and polite smiles. Kayla called me her foster sister, like a disclaimer. Sometimes, she told people I was her cousin if they were cool. I didn't blame her. I wouldn't have claimed me either. At school, I told lies about my family. Said they were missionaries. Said they were overseas. Said they'd be back soon. I needed the lie. It gave me a way to exist without pity. I hated pity. It always felt like secondhand love. Never the real thing. By 12, I knew what kind of girl got left behind. The quiet ones. The clingy ones. The ones who cried too loudly or laughed at the wrong times. I became a master of moderation. I got good grades. I ate everything on my plate. I never asked for seconds, even when I was starving. And every birthday that passed, I lit candles no one else cared about and made the same wish: let me be enough for someone. Not even loved. Just wanted. I didn't know that wish would echo inside me for 20 years before it stopped hurting. I stopped talking about them entirely by high school. People assumed my parents were dead. I let them. It felt more honorable than the truth that they were alive and simply chose not to know me. In some ways, pretending they were gone made it easier to breathe. Grief is cleaner than abandonment. Abandonment is messy. It follows you into every relationship, every celebration. It shows up when someone says, "You remind me of your mother," and you have to pretend you don't flinch. It wraps itself around your self-worth like vines. Even when you bloom, the roots still choke you. But even then, even broken, even displaced, I didn't vanish. I carried myself through those years like a body carrying a flame. Small, but burning. And one day I decided, if no one would come back for me, I'd come back for myself. I didn't know how or when, but I made a promise to that 10-year-old girl with the red ribbons. She wouldn't disappear. Not in shame. Not in silence. She'd become someone impossible to ignore. I didn't want revenge. I wanted recognition. I didn't want them to suffer. I just wanted to exist louder than their decision to leave. Angela never hit me. That's important to say, I guess. No bruises. No scars. Just the kind of emptiness that doesn't photograph well. She fed me, clothed me, drove me to school, but I was always extra. An add-on. A placeholder. Kayla got bedtime stories. I got lights out. Kayla got, "I'm proud of you." I got reminders to rinse my dishes. No one was cruel. They were just tired. I learned to be quiet in rooms that didn't want my voice. I learned that love wasn't owed, and kindness was earned. Every smile I got felt like a reward for disappearing. They called me a good girl. The kind that doesn't cry, doesn't ask, doesn't break the routine. Angela loved saying, "We've been so lucky with her. She's low maintenance." I didn't want to be lucky. I wanted to be loved. But love was reserved for people with matching DNA and scrapbooks full of baby pictures. I didn't have either. I had a box of hand-me-down clothes and a school photo where I smiled too wide, desperate to look happy enough to keep. Every day I stayed in that house, I felt like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. But smiled anyway. There was a neighbor named Mrs. Kaminsky. She gave me ginger snaps every Friday and called me sunshine even when I looked like rain. She was the first person who hugged me just because. No holiday. No performance. Just because. I cried in her laundry room once. She didn't ask questions. Just sat with me while the washer hummed. I think that was the closest I ever got to feeling safe in those years. One ginger snap at a time, she reminded me that kindness didn't have to be earned. But I still didn't believe it applied to me. Middle school was when the quiet turned into something else. I didn't feel sad, I felt hollow. I watched other girls giggle over crushes, get picked up by parents with warm cars and warmer eyes. I walked home alone most days. I'd tell people Angela was busy with work, but the truth was she just forgot sometimes. Or assumed I'd manage. And I did. I always did. That's the thing about being forgotten, you get good at anticipating your own abandonment. I stopped waiting. Stopped hoping. I became the kind of girl who packed a bag just in case. The older I got, the less space I took up. I skipped meals sometimes, not out of rebellion, but out of habit. I figured if I was less, I'd be easier to love. I stopped asking for anything unless it was absolutely necessary. Kayla once joked that I was basically a nun. I laughed. But inside, I wondered if nuns at least got to feel chosen. I didn't want to be invisible, but visibility came with risk. Attention could turn into blame. Or worse, removal. I knew that if I ever made trouble, I'd be moved again. I wanted roots, even in bad soil. When I turned 16, Angela forgot. No cake. No card. Not even a mention. Kayla posted photos of her new shoes that day, captioned, "Sweet 16 vibes." I sat on the porch and watched the sunset, pretending it was enough. That night, I cut my hair with kitchen scissors. Not as rebellion. Just as proof that something about me could change without needing permission. I wanted to see someone new in the mirror. Someone untouched by silence. I flushed the braids down the toilet like an offering. I didn't cry. I hadn't cried in years. Not where anyone could see. At 17, I signed up for early emancipation. Angela didn't fight it. She just said, "You've always been mature." That was her goodbye. I left with a duffel bag, $300 in savings, and a diploma covered in fingerprints. I rented a room behind a gas station. The floor was cracked concrete, but it was mine. For the first time, I locked a door that no one else had keys to. I didn't know how to celebrate. I made spaghetti, ate it straight from the pot, and slept on an air mattress like it was royalty. Freedom felt fragile, but real. In that tiny room, I wrote my first journal entry. Addressed it to the girl they gave away. I told her she wasn't broken. She wasn't a burden. She was unclaimed, not unloved. I told her we'd make it. I promised her that every day we stayed alive would be a protest. A kind of poetry. A refusal to become bitter. That night, I slept with the journal under my pillow. It was the first time I fell asleep knowing no one would come to take me away. And maybe no one was coming to find me. But I was finding myself. I didn't reinvent myself overnight. It happened slowly. The way bruises fade or seasons change. Subtle shifts that no one notices until the air smells different. I took jobs that paid too little and kept the lights on anyway. I learned how to hold my own body through panic attacks and interviews. I figured out how to be two things at once, soft and armored, open and untouchable. The name I was born with faded behind job applications and email signatures. I became Ray, cleaner, simpler, mine. And no one knew the girl I buried to get there. I never brought her up. College was supposed to be out of reach, but I clawed my way in anyway. I worked mornings at a bakery, nights at a call center, and weekends writing resumes for people who didn't know I was still figuring out my own future. I studied social work, not because I wanted to fix people, but because I needed to understand how the system forgot me so easily. I needed answers. I wanted vocabulary for pain. I graduated with no family in the audience, no flowers, no clapping, just me in borrowed heels and a heart that refused to stay small anymore. The first time I was called ma'am, I laughed until I realized it wasn't a joke. I had become a woman. Not just in body, but in presence. The kind of woman who paid bills on time, folded sheets neatly, watered plants, and still looked over her shoulder when the wind hit just right. My 20s were quiet, slow, but sacred. I built routines. I made boundaries. I fell in love with mornings because no one had ever ruined them for me. I was lonely sometimes, but never lost. That was the trade. I chose peace over belonging. I chose control over closeness. Love came like a whisper, unexpected, terrifying, and tender. He didn't ask me to explain why I froze when he reached for my hand in public. He didn't flinch when I woke up crying from dreams I didn't remember. He just stayed. Again and again, he stayed. He didn't try to fix me. He made space for me. And slowly, I let myself unfold. Not like a flower, but like a fist unclenching after years of bracing for impact. I started to believe that love didn't have to be earned. It could be given. Offered freely. And I was allowed to receive it. He proposed under soft cafe lights. Not on a stage, not in a spectacle, just a quiet moment with no audience, no performance. I said yes not because I was ready to be a wife, but because I was finally ready to be seen. Planning the wedding felt surreal. I chose dusty rose linens, vanilla bean cake, vows written by hand. I built the ceremony around what I never had, gentleness, clarity, safety. For once, I wasn't surviving. I was celebrating. I sent invitations to chosen family only. The people who stitched me together when the world left me undone. Then came the messages. First a cousin I barely remembered. Then my aunt. Then, eventually, my mother. Emails, voicemails, Facebook requests, all saying the same thing. We heard you're getting married. We'd love to come. As if love had anything to do with it. As if 20 years of silence could be undone by RSVP. They wrote like we had a foundation, like we'd been on pause instead of permanently erased. We're proud of you, they said. Like I was a tree they'd planted, not a forest they'd abandoned. I didn't respond. My therapist said silence was a boundary too. But their silence had taught me something else, how to predict patterns. I knew they wouldn't take no for an answer. And I was right. 2 weeks before the wedding, they sent a gift. A silver picture frame with the word family etched across the top in fake cursive. No note. Just implication. Just presence. I stared at it for a long time, wondering if grief ever truly ends or just shapeshifts. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just wrapped it in tissue paper and placed it in a donation box. Let someone else decide what to do with ghosts. The night before my wedding, I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time. Not to admire the dress. Not to practice the smile. But to remember the path I took to get here. I traced the shape of my collarbone, my knuckles, my jawline, each one formed by choices they never witnessed. I whispered thank you to the girl who stayed awake that first night alone. I whispered I love you to the woman she grew into. I slept soundly. I dreamed of a ceremony full of warmth. What I didn't dream of, what I couldn't imagine, was the storm already on its way. I should have known they'd come anyway. The way people crash funerals not out of grief, but because they can't stand not being seen pretending to grieve. My mother arrived first, unannounced and uninvited, wearing soft lavender like she belonged there. My father stood beside her, back rigid, holding a gift bag that looked expensive enough to feel like redemption. I didn't remember them owning anything that sparkled. As soon as I saw them at the edge of the courtyard, standing beneath the eucalyptus archway I had chosen alone, my stomach dropped. My wedding was no longer mine. I was in the bridal suite when someone from catering knocked and said, "There are 2 guests asking if they're on the list." My heart stuttered. I knew. Some knowledge lives in your spine, not your brain. I walked out without hesitation, without telling anyone, and there they were, exactly as I had rehearsed in so many nightmares. She smiled first. He stayed still. And just like that, 20 years of silence evaporated in the scent of peonies and lavender oil. "Look at you," she whispered, arms opening like she hadn't driven away from me as a child. "You look beautiful, baby." My mouth was dry. My throat was sandpaper. I looked at her like a stranger who had stolen my face. My fiancé appeared behind me, his hand touching my waist with practiced gentleness. She turned to him like a proud matriarch and said, "You must be the man who made our daughter whole." Our daughter. Our. As if my becoming belonged to them. As if healing had anything to do with their absence. As if survival was a family effort. I stared at her hands, manicured and trembling. That's when I saw it. The necklace. A thin gold chain. My grandmother's. She pulled it out from her purse slowly, like it was a peace offering, a ceremonial passing of bloodlines. "This was your grandmother's. She would have wanted you to have it on your wedding day. It's tradition." The audacity was surgical. I reached out and took it. She smiled, triumphant. I turned toward the nearest microphone. My cousin had just finished his toast. The courtyard quieted. I stepped into the light. The necklace glinted between my fingers. I held it up like an artifact, like evidence. My voice didn't shake. "This belongs to a daughter you don't abandon." Gasps. A glass hit the ground somewhere. Her face cracked like porcelain, the smile collapsing into something real. For once, she didn't have words. My father looked like a man who realized too late that the script had changed. I handed the necklace to the wedding planner beside me. "Please put this somewhere safe. It's not mine anymore." My fiancé stood beside me, a quiet wall of calm, never once pulling me back or speaking over me. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sacred. It was the sound of a severed cord falling quietly to the floor. They were asked to leave. Politely. Professionally. The planner escorted them out before dessert. I didn't watch them go. I didn't need to. Some exits you feel in the soles of your feet. My guests didn't ask questions. They raised glasses. They clinked forks against glasses. They danced harder. They loved louder. And when my maid of honor gave her speech, she didn't mention trauma. She mentioned tenacity. "You taught me that survival can become ceremony," she said. And the crowd stood for me. Not because I had been hurt, but because I had arrived anyway. Later that night, my husband and I snuck away to the rooftop above the reception hall. I took off my shoes. He poured champagne into paper cups. I was shaking, not from fear, from release. "You okay?" he asked, touching the place where my necklace would have been. I nodded. "Better than okay," I said. I said what I needed to say. I didn't plan it. I just couldn't let her rewrite it. He kissed my hand. "You rewrote it first." In that moment, I didn't feel like the girl they left. I felt like the woman who had chosen herself, out loud, in front of everyone. The wedding wasn't ruined. It was reclaimed. Not in spite of their intrusion, but because I didn't let it fracture me. I didn't collapse. I stood. I told the truth without needing to explain it. I gave the little girl inside me the moment she had waited for, to be seen, not by them, but in spite of them. And that's the thing about survival, it doesn't always look like escape. Sometimes, it looks like staying exactly where you are, exactly who you are, and refusing to let anyone rearrange your story. Especially the people who tried to erase you from it. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight painting the sheets and a ring that still felt like fiction. My husband lay beside me, breathing slow, steady, unbothered by the chaos from the night before. But I wasn't. I sat in the bathroom alone, brushing my teeth with shaking hands, replaying everything: my mother's eyes, my father's voice, their presence staining what was supposed to be clean. They didn't ruin the wedding. They didn't get that power. But they left a bruise. Not a deep one, just familiar. The kind that reminds you where the damage started. And why it stops with you. There were voicemails already waiting. You embarrassed us. We just wanted to be part of your big day. Is forgiveness not allowed in your world? They talked like this was mutual loss, like we'd all been victims of distance. They didn't understand that it wasn't the wedding they were denied, it was me. I wasn't a party they missed. I was a person they abandoned. They didn't raise me, shape me, sacrifice for me. They forfeited that honor when they left me without explanation. They wanted credit without cost. Access without apology. But you don't get to love me in front of a crowd. My therapist said something once I didn't understand until now. Closure is something you give yourself when the apology never comes. I'd spent years imagining conversations that would never happen. Years rehearsing speeches for people who weren't listening. I thought if I could just get them to admit what they did, I could breathe easier. But the truth is, they'll never see it. Not the way I lived it. Not the way it scarred me. So I stopped needing them to. Their understanding doesn't unlock my healing. My healing happened in the absence of them. And that's more powerful than forgiveness. I wrote one final message, not for them, but for the girl they left behind. I told her she didn't imagine it. That yes, they left, and yes, it broke her, but she didn't stay broken. She became someone they wouldn't recognize. Someone too whole for their hands. I told her she survived every silent birthday, every missed milestone, every school pickup that never came. And she did it without begging, without shrinking, without turning cruel. That girl deserved to be seen. And now she is. Not by them. By me. Fully. Finally. Not as a victim. As a woman who made it. The frame they sent with the word family still sits in a donation box. I haven't thrown it away, not because I'm sentimental, but because it reminds me what not to believe. Family is not defined by blood, nor by last name scrawled on old certificates. Family is who shows up at your worst. Family is who listens without needing to be right. Family is earned, not claimed. I have that now. Friends who braided my hair the morning of my wedding. A partner who holds my hand when I freeze. A new last name that doesn't carry old silence. I've stopped wondering if they'll ever change. I no longer check emails with dread or read messages in secret. I don't owe them a performance. I don't owe them space. And more importantly, I don't owe them access to the joy they didn't help build. My life isn't a stage they get to walk onto now that the lights are bright. They missed the work. They missed the dark. And now they've missed the door. I didn't slam it. I just let it stay closed. Quietly. Peacefully. That's what healing sounds like sometimes. Not a scream. Just silence that doesn't ache anymore. A week after the wedding, we took a short trip. Somewhere with mountains and fog and no cell signal. I didn't tell anyone where we were going. I didn't post pictures. I just lived. I drank tea in the mornings and watched my husband read by firelight. I laughed in a way I hadn't since childhood, unrestrained, belly deep, full. And in that stillness, I realized something important. They could never take this from me. Not the peace. Not the love. Not the woman I had become. I wasn't theirs to hurt anymore. I wasn't theirs to name. I wasn't theirs. Period. Sometimes people say, you should give them another chance. They're still your family. And I smile, the kind of smile that holds its breath. Because I've already given them too many chances. And what they did was not a mistake, it was a decision. A permanent one. The kind you don't get to revise just because your absence became uncomfortable. I'm not bitter. I'm clear. I don't hate them. I just don't invite them. And if that makes me cruel, then so be it. Because the kindest thing I've ever done for the girl they left behind is finally letting her walk away. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening. If this story felt like yours, or reminded you of someone you used to be, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe, so more stories like this get told. And if you've got a letter of your own, you know where to find Ray.